Mr. President, I understand that although the Republicans still have time left under the division, that with their consent, that it's permissible to proceed with the time for the majority.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I take this time to emphasize the need of our nation to move forward with an energy policy. And I know that the presiding officer shares that commitment on working very hard on the Environment and Public Works Committee to produce legislation that will solve the three major issues we have in this nation with energy. One, to create jobs. We need to create good, clean energy jobs here in America, not lose them to overseas. We understand that. We also understand we need an energy policy for our national security. We don't want to continue to support the efforts of countries that disagree with our way of life. We've got to become energy secure here in America. And we need to do it for the sake of our environment. We know that greenhouse gas emissions, carbon emissions, is polluting our airs, and that we can answer all three of these issues: creating jobs, national security, and environment through alternative and renewable energy sources, using less energy, and moving forward with nuclear energy. All that we need to do. And it cannot be solved by trying to drill our way out of this problem. I say that because America has somewhere around 3% of the global oil reserves. We use about 25%. We can't drill our way out. And secondly, we got to use less carbon emission fuel sources for the sake of our environment. President Obama recently announced the opening of 8 frontier areas in the United States for the outer shelf exploration and development of oil and gas. I oppose that policy. And I wanted to explain to my colleagues why I oppose that policy. Secretary Salazar said that we need to protect our most environmentally sensitive areas from drilling. I agree. The president's announcement protected the West Coast and the North Atlantic. But I can tell you, just talk to any people in this region, and they'll tell you that the Chesapeake Bay and our coastlines in this area are just as precious and just as vulnerable as the West Coast of the United States or the North Atlantic. I oppose the president's policy because there are other areas currently available. 68 million acres that have not yet been explored are available in this country for oil and gas exploration. Many of those areas are on the outer continental shelf, so there's no need at this time to expand that network. And I must tell you, the risk-reward is what I am mostly concerned about. The risk of doing environmental damage versus the little oil that may be in these areas. It just doesn't pay. I heard the advocates of offshore drilling say, well, modern technology has substantially reduced the risk, that we now know how to deal with this issue and avoid any type of catastrophic environmental risk. Well, Mr. President, let me share with you this photo. You're looking at the Deepwater horizon in the Gulf of Mexico. This photograph occurred at an accident just 8 days ago, in which there was a tragic explosion and fire, in which people lost their lives, which is the greatest tragedy, the loss of life, but also created an environmental disaster 8 days ago. Now, let me tell you something. Deepwater Horizon is considered to be the most technologically advanced offshore oil rig in the world. $600 million was spent in constructing this so it would be safe. My point is, it exploded, and it cost people their lives, and it's created an environmental disaster. This oil rig is located 50 miles southeast of Venice, Louisiana. There were 700,000 gallons of number 2 fuel on board that burned or was spilled into the Gulf. It's currently leaking about 1,000 barrels a day going into the Gulf of Mexico. It is spreading. If I could just show you this map. Now, this is hard to see, but this is from space, taking a look at this region of the United States of America. You start to see the coastline of America. But you can also see where the spill is located. The spill is right here. So from the space shot, you can actually see the spill area. The spill area has spread 1,800 miles, an area larger than the state of Rhode Island. This is another view of the spill area. What I'm showing you here, this is what the oil area that you saw, this is all oil that's currently in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's spreading. The trajectory shows, and these lines are what you saw here is the area that includes just this area here. Doesn't include the green, it doesn't include this light orange area. That's where it's projected to go on April 27th. This is spreading. Let me tell you the good news in this, to the extent there is a good news, is that we haven't had strong winds out of the north or northeast. If we did, it's very likely that this oil spill would already be approaching the coastlines. There's many areas that are vulnerable as a result of the spill, many coastal areas in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. It's approaching the Delta and Breton National Wildlife Refuge and the Chandelier Barrier Islands. It threatens our coasts. It threatens bird nesting habitats, oyster production areas, wildlife, wetlands. The list goes on and on and on. Now, I know the presiding officer knows the importance of bird nesting habitats for the protection of species. He understands that oyster production areas can be destroyed for generations as a result of pollution. That when we lose wildlife, we can lose it permanently. And when we lose wetlands, we lose the filtration system that protects us from pollutants coming into the bay, and we lose the speed bumps that can prevent storms from causing more havoc when they come to our coast. This is all happening in the most as a result of a spill and a fire from the most technologically advanced rig in the world. The New York Times, today's article says, we might have to have a controlled burn because we don't know how to clean up this oil. We're told we have technology, and now we're going to have to use a burn in order to deal with that, with the ensuing consequences. First thing you do when you have an event like this is you try to plug the hole so it doesn't spill out more oil into the bay. Guess what? We're told because of the depth of where it is, it could take up to a month, several months, to plug the leak. And so what can you do? Oil's pouring out. They say, well, we're going to try to funnel the oil for collection. It's never been done before at this depth. We're trying to retrofit equipment today in order to deal with that problem. Will it work? I don't know. But these are the risks inherent in offshore drilling. It underscores my concern and opposition for offshore drilling as proposed by the president. So let me talk about why this is not hypothetical to the people of Maryland, but this is a real problem. There's a site known as Lease Sale 220. Lease Sale 220 site is located off the shore of Virginia. It's a 2.9 million acre site. Now, the site that they want to drill is the green triangle that you see here. The purple shows the current flows. And here you see the coasts of New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. What is instructive by this chart is you also see how the currents go. Let me also tell you that NOAA tells us that 72% of the time, the prevailing winds in this region blow towards the coast. 72% of the time. If there is a catastrophe, if there's an oil spill related to this site, the likelihood of reaching the shores of New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, the Outer Banks are real. Here's the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, 50 miles away from this site. The Chesapeake Bay, as the presiding officer knows, we're struggling to deal with the cleanup of the bay. It's hard enough just dealing with the known pollutants that come in from farming and from development and from storm runoff. Put into that a potential oil spill, and it would set us back decades in trying to restart our oyster crops and help our watermen with the blue crabs and to deal with the returning of the rockfish. It's too great of a risk. As Secretary Salazar said, there are certain parts in this country that are just so environmentally sensitive, they're not worth the risk. The west coast of the United States, North Atlantic, and I tell you that the coast around the Chesapeake Bay falls into that category. We should not permit that type of drilling. Now, we can do something about this. We're going to have a chance. I'm a strong proponent of what Senator Kerry is attempting to do in bringing forward a bill that could solve all three of our problems: creating jobs, dealing with our national security, and responsibly dealing with pollutants in our environment and be an international leader dealing with carbon reductions. All three of those solutions can be done without this drilling. We'll have a chance to say something about it. And I just urge my colleagues to take a look at what happened off the Gulf of Mexico and to work with us to make sure that we have sensible energy policy in this country, and help me and help our nation protect the Chesapeake Bay and protect those lands that are just too valuable and too sensitive to risk oil drilling.